welcome back to my channel. This is my first video in my actual place, my new studio. All of these windows are really gonna like blow this image out, but that is what it is. It's so exciting. I've got like my giant sewing table now. The kitchen's still a little tough. My bedroom is finally cute. And it's time to finally start filming here, which is so exciting. And I have a really fun project planned out for today. So let's get into it. So the inspiration for this dress all came from this tablecloth that I thrifted while I was living in Romania. And it has the most gorgeous embroidery. I think it's just so pretty. And I was like, okay, so I need to do something with that, obviously. And so that's where this whole design for the dress came from. Also, sorry if you hear chickens outside because we have a rooster and he's very noisy. So this is the main fabric, and then I just have a white rayon lining fabric to go underneath it. And I already went ahead and printed out and assembled my pattern pieces. Of course, this will be linked in the bio. It's on my website. It comes in extra, extra small to extra, extra, extra large. But if you don't want to buy the pattern, I'm going to show you the measurements for these pattern pieces as well. So let's cut out our fabric.
So because this fabric has this embroidery that I really wanted to highlight, I am cutting the front part of this dress on the bias. I didn't design this pattern to be cut on the bias, but obviously it will work because I'm doing so in the video. But if you're just using a regular fabric, I would just go ahead and put this on the straight grain. But the first step is just going to be cutting out all of your pattern pieces. And also it's really important that we mark out all of the darts. And normally I would mark darts with just like a tracing paper, but I actually don't have any of that right now. So I'm just placing a pin onto specific points of the dart and then just marking that through with a regular water-soluble pencil. And then to transfer it onto the back, I was just putting pins all the way through the fabric so I could see where they're gonna line up and marking it on the other side. And with this dress, I had a lot of fun placing where I wanted the embroidery to be on the design. And so on the back, I chose to put this really pretty like rounded cascade of flowers down the center back. And then all along the bottom of the fabric, it has this trim, so I made that the bottom of the ruffles. And so instead of adding seam allowance, I'm placing the end of my ruffle where the finished hem would be. And so here are all the pattern pieces. So this is the ruffle piece, and you're gonna cut 3 of these, and they should all be on the fold. This is the skirt piece, and this is also on the fold, and then there's 2 notches 7 inches down on either side seam. And then here's my front piece, and again I put that cute little finished edge as a little detail across the neckline. So on that edge it doesn't include any seam allowance. And this is the measurements for the basic outline, and then here is the measurements for the darts. And then the last pattern piece is just some really long straps to make the ties in the back. And to start us off, we're actually going to be working with those straps. And so the first step is just going to be folding them in half and sewing them all along this really long edge. And for that step, I used 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And to turn these right side out, I like to leave a super long thread when I finish sewing them. And I just tie a little knot in the end of it, slip a safety pin through, and then push that back through the strap so that I can use it to turn this whole piece right side out. And this can be a little bit tricky to get started, but you just have to keep working at it slowly until it starts to work, and then it's not too bad to keep turning it right side out.
Hi, hello. This is actually Allie from the future after I finished making this dress. Because after I finished it, I decided I wanted to do a little bit of tweaking to it just to give it a little bit more shape. And so the first step that we're actually gonna do, I'm gonna show you on this muslin piece of fabric because we're just gonna sew in some darts really quickly and then continue on with the rest of the regular steps. But so pretend this is the full dress pattern and this is an outer layer, and then we also have a lining layer. All we're going to be doing is we're going to quickly fold these darts so that both of the lines match up. And we're just going to sew these down either side, and we're going to do this on the outer layer, and then we're going to do it on the lining layer separately. And so we're only sewing these darts right now, and we're going to leave these ones for later.
And so now just pretend like I sewed those darts in first thing. And so now we're going to be taking the back skirt and we're going to place it down the side seam of the front. And we're going to match up those notches and we're going to pin them down either side. But when it comes to actually sewing these, on the right side of the outer layer, we're going to be starting from the hip dart all the way down to the bottom. And then on the left side, we're going to sew all the way up the side seam, stopping at the waist notch. And when you stop at the waist notch, that should leave 1/2 inch to the top of the skirt edge. And we're going to do the same thing on the lining layer, except this time the right side is going to be sewn from the waist to the hem and the left side is going to be sewn from the hip to the hem. Also, like, just as a side note, for this past month, I've literally been so addicted to Rachel Chinouriri's album, What a Devastating Turn of Events. Like, it's literally been on a loop nonstop, so that's what's playing in the background right here. Ooh, actually her and Lola Young, both on repeats. And here I'm just giving you a close-up on that waist notch. I actually cut it even closer to the seam after this. But now we're going to put the lining piece and the outer layer together, pretty side to pretty side. And we're going to pin them together all across the top edges of the front and the skirt. We're going to start sewing from the waist dart on the right, all the way around the perimeter to the end of the top of the skirt. But like I said, because I wanted to add this cute little trim edge, I'm actually going to leave this part of the top open, but if you're not doing that, then you can just sew across this edge right now. It's gonna be so cute. Okay, I feel like I do this every single time. Let me put you back. I feel like I do this every single time when I'm like going to add straps, or I'm like, I need to add the straps in before I sew the neckline. So then I sew the straps, and then I don't put them in and I sew the neckline. Make it make sense. So I just sew straight across the neckline. So I'm gonna have to seam rip the little corners. And we're gonna be adding in the rooster. And we're going to be adding in one of our straps in on either side at the very corners. So I'm gonna fix that. You guys are gonna have to get used to that. It's gonna be in every video, I just know it. Yeah, so if you're smart, do that part first. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be so good. I'm gonna sew the straps first, and that way they're already ready to go. I just have to put them in, and then it completely slips my mind every single time. So yeah, if you do too, you just seam rip a little bit and just shove those in and then restitch over that one part. And now that we fixed that, we're going to turn the dress right side out. I'm going to turn that lining fabric in for that 1/2 inch seam allowance so that it meets the top edge of the trim, pin that in place, and I'm just going to go ahead and do a top stitch all across this, as close to the little scallops as I can. And now I'm adding some understitching to the neckline and the top of the skirt, because this just gives it a really clean finish. It makes everything lay nicer. And so the way you do that is you turn all of your seam allowance towards your lining fabric, and then you're basically just top stitching that down so that it sticks to the lining side and not the outer layer. And I pretty much do that on every single seam that I can, just because, like I said, it makes it so clean. I just realized that I really should have an iron for this step because my fabric, honestly, I should have apologized for this sooner, but I haven't brought my iron to my new place yet, and I keep forgetting it. So that's why my fabric is so wrinkly today. And it would really be helpful if I had one for this step, but you're just gonna have to bear with me. This just like should be smoother, but it'll be fine. So for this, we really need the outer layer and the lining layers to kind of act as one piece of fabric. So I'm just adding a bunch of pins all across the front. And then the darts that we marked out, this is now where we're going to fold them in half, and we're going to pin the outer layer and the lining layer at the same time for these darts. And we're going to sew them together in this dart.
Okay, first try on. And I think it's looking pretty cute. I have some minor alterations to make where I think I want to take in this skirt a little bit on the sides just to make it a little bit more snug against my waist. And then there's two ways that we can finish up these straps. If you want to make them adjustable, you can fold over the corner and make a channel here. But I really like the dramatic point of this part, so I'm just going to stitch my shoulder strap in place there. And so I marked that with a pin where I want it to go, and I'm going to match it on this side. But so far I think it's looking so cute. I'm so excited.
So I just added some little stitches here to hold the straps in place, and I folded it so it would kind of go in from one side and come out at a different angle. And now we're going to be inserting the invisible zipper down the side seam. And first thing I always like to do with an invisible zipper is to mark the top edge so I know exactly where it's going to end. And I'm going to place that point right at the top edge of the side seam. But right now when we're sewing the zipper, we're only going to be sewing it to the outer layer of the fabric, down to that hip notch. And as always, you kind of want to unroll your zipper and just sew as close to the teeth as you can without actually hitting them. And then we're going to zip that zipper back up, mark exactly where we stopped sewing on the other side of the zipper so that we know they'll match up. Unzip it and sew it to the other side of the skirt, again, only to the outer layer right now. And then Dill really decided that he needed a moment in the spotlight here, which I don't know if you guys can hear him purring or not right now, but he's like spinning around on his back right now on my bed, so.
What's the matter? Dill is throwing quite the temper tantrum. Yeah. Dill. What?
But continue with the zipper. Now I zipped it back up and I just pulled the little tail of the zipper through to the back side. And I always use zippers that are way too long, so I just keep these always on stock. So I just add some stitches across the end of it and chop off all the excess. And now we're going to turn the selvage edge of the zipper in towards the skirt, and we're going to fold the lining edge over to encase it and pin that in place on both sides. And we're just going to do a really quick hand stitch to finish up this edge. But when you're hand stitching this, I'm only catching the zipper and the lining. I'm not catching the outer layer at all, so it gives a totally seamless and professional finish.
Honestly, I'm like really playing with the sewing gods, like drinking coffee while sewing a white dress. I know you are. I'm testing.
Isn't that so snazzy? Ooh la la. And now we're going to be working on the ruffles of the skirt. So I'm just taking all of our ruffle pieces, putting them pretty side to pretty side, and sewing them together down their short edges to create one continuous loop. And everybody say hi, Nittany.
Hey! Everybody's still learning to live together nicely.
And now I'm taking that really long loop that we just made, and I'm dividing it into 4 equal sections. And I'm just marking it by adding a little vertical pin at each quadrant. And now I'm just adding 2 rows of basting stitches all across the top edge. But to make it easier to gather, I'm going to do 2 different sections that are stopping at either halfway point on the ruffles. And the basting stitches should be placed about like 1/4 of an inch away from the top edge, and then 3/4 of an inch away from the top edge, so that when we sew these pieces together in the end, we can just sew right across at our 1/2 inch seam allowance. And now I'm also dividing the outer layer of our skirt into 4 quadrants. And then we're going to pin those quadrants together. So we're going to match them up at those 4 points put a vertical pin, and then this is going to leave you with these really big gaps for the ruffles. And so this is how you know how much to gather them up. And so to actually gather them, all you have to do is pull on 2 of your basting stitches that are on the same side of your fabric and kind of guide the fabric down. And once it fits into that space, you're going to evenly space out all of your ruffles, add some pins all across, and then we can go ahead and sew all the way around with a regular straight stitch. And once that's secure, you can go ahead and just pull out all of those basting stitches. They should just be really easy to just yank them all out. And then I'm just adding a zigzag stitch all across that edge to help with any fraying and any of the bulk. And then I'm not hemming my ruffles because they have that finished edge, but this is the point where you would go ahead and add a hem to the bottom. And then I'm also just adding a quick little hem to the lining layer. And after that, this dress is finally done. I absolutely love how this dress turned out, and I love a backless moment, but unfortunately the second I stepped outside to model this, some sort of bug bit me on my back, so please ignore how swollen I am already, and just enjoy how pretty this backless moment is. But in all seriousness, this dress honestly turned out exactly how I envisioned it. I absolutely love the embroidery detailing, and I really do think this dress would look great in so many different types of fabric. But then I did get interrupted while trying to model this dress.
Okay, I'm out here filming and there's an armadillo. I'm gonna try to show you guys. He's so cute. They're so precious. There's been one that's been frequenting around our house. He's so cute. I've been calling him Arnold because Arnold the armadillo just makes sense. Anyway, whew.
But that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry this one is a little bit late. I've been moving all month, so it's been a very busy time for me, but I hope I will see you guys again very soon in the next one. So, bye!